It's the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Puris coming to you from Baltimore. Based in Frankfurt, the German Deutsche Bank is the third biggest bank in Europe and the largest bank in Germany, with branches all over the world. Now, the financial press has nervously been reporting a looming crisis at Deutsche Bank, and of late another troubling sign has surfaced when the CEO of the bank announced that it will attempt to recover its profits by laying off over 9,000 workers and closing about 10% of its branches and cutting most of its investment banking activity. Let's listen.
Die Zahl der Vollzeitstellen wird also derzeit von
The number of full-time employees will fall from 97,000 to well under 90,000 by the end of 2019.
Eine solche Entscheidung, meine Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, we do not take such a decision lightly, but the layoffs are unavoidable if our bank is to remain sustainably profitable.
And that was the CEO of Deutsche Bank, Christian Sewing, and he is trying to report to the shareholders that there are ways in which to recover the crisis that Deutsche Bank is undergoing. Now, on to talk about this with me today is Paul Steinhardt. He is the managing director of Makroskop, the Institute for the study of macroeconomic policy, and it is based in Germany. He publishes numerous articles on Makroskop. I thank you so much for joining us today, Paul.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Paul, let's start off with what is exactly causing this crisis at Deutsche Bank and its implications.
Well, the problem is that they overexposed to the investment banking sector, and that they have legacy assets, and obviously these assets still lose money. So there's nothing like, people actually were saying it has to do something with Italy. That's bullshit. That's not true.
And do you think that the route they're taking in terms of these layoffs and downsizing is the right route to take?
Absolutely, that's the only thing they can do. I mean, they have to cut costs, and they have to get out of a loss-making business segment as quickly and as much as they can.
And Paul, how is the German government and the ECB responding to this crisis at Deutsche Bank?
Officially, not at all, really. I mean, there was, that's actually, I think, already a couple of months ago, there were some statements about concerns. But officially not at all, even so it was rumored that there would already be emergency measures kind of like in the drawers, but officially you don't hear anything from politicians on the ECB.
All right. Now, in September of 2016, the stocks of Deutsche Bank sank to the lowest rate in years, and now we still see it falling. What caused that steady decline over actually a long period of time now?
Well, obviously, the markets had expected that the kind of planned structural changes would actually bring results, but then Deutsche Bank has to report losses over and over again. And that's what I said. I mean, in a way, really nobody knows how many risks are hidden within Deutsche Bank's balance sheet. So obviously there must be a lot, because whenever they have announced that now they would be over the worst and they would see profits again, they have to make write-downs again. So now what happened today, or actually yesterday, I don't exactly know, but obviously, I mean, it's serious. It's actually the first time. I mean, the Deutsche Bank is now under 10 euros, which is, it's the share price, which is really serious. So that tells me that somebody at least was informed that the problems are much, much, much bigger than anybody would have thought. Because you see, the layoffs, this is not completely new. I mean, it was known for quite a while now that Deutsche Bank would have to lay off people.
All right. Now, in 2017, Deutsche Bank was fined $10 billion for violating sanctions against Russia. The amount was later reduced to $7.2 billion. Was this, first of all, causing any of this turbulence?
I mean, obviously added to it. I mean, if you have losses, but I think at the end of the day, I mean, as I said, I think that Deutsche Bank is in a way a delayed victim of the huge exposure to the investment banking sector. Other banks like Credit Suisse, they had the problems much earlier, but they had the problems as well. And I personally really think it's kind of like the investment banking strategy really failed. And of course, I mean, the charges. I mean, they were huge amounts. I mean, they definitely didn't help. But I don't think that that's the immediate cause. I think Deutsche Bank simply was betting too much on the investment banking sector.
All right. Okay, now, Paul, how important is Deutsche Bank to the EU and, of course, Germany? And, of course, you've seen in the recent news that the political crisis in Italy and has also created a lot of nervousness in terms of the banking sector. How is this dive in the market of Deutsche Bank playing itself out against Europe and what else is going on politically in Europe?
You see, I would say it depends very much on how the financial authorities, the ECB, and as you may know, we have something kind of like very unique now in Europe called the banking union. Where they want to bail in so-called creditors. Now it depends very much on if Deutsche Bank gets further problem. It depends very much on how they handle that. I mean, if they handle that wisely, it is primarily a problem for the employees and the shareholders. But I don't think it is generally not, even so Deutsche Bank is huge. If they handle it right, it's not a major problem for let's say the banking industry in Europe. That's the same thing is true for the Italian banks. But if they handle it stupidly, I mean, if they really believe, kind of like seriously, these kind of like bail-in procedures can work, and they would have to try it with Deutsche Bank. Now we're not yet there, but I mean, it might well happen. Then you might actually see a huge banking crisis all over Europe. So hopefully, the people responsible for the banking sector understand that, like in the US, I mean, they cannot allow another Lehman disaster because they believe kind of like the banks have to be liable for what they did. This unfortunately doesn't work, So I think it depends very much if they handle it wisely and they make sure that especially the payment transfer systems is not jeopardized.
All right. When you say handling it wisely, what is it exactly you mean? What do they need to do?
See, usually you would say, and people don't like that, you have to bail them out one way or the other. There are various ways to do it, but they have to bail them out. Now, the bailout, of course, might be politically very difficult because especially in Germany, people believe that a bailout involves taxpayers' money. Okay, I mean, that's basically how they have communicated it. In Europe, that whenever you rescue a bank or you, rescue a state, it's basically taxpayers' money. Now, in reality, of course, there's no taxpayers' money. But nonetheless, politically, it might be very, very difficult. Let's say, like a Deutsche Bank would be in grave difficulties, and you would have to somehow bail them out. So it might be difficult. As you could see in the States, it is not a problem. I mean, if you just don't blink, and just bail out, the important institutions and maybe restructure it, you can handle it. But if you have too many political problems, then you actually might cause huge harm.
All right, now the Deutsche Bank itself is resorting to some techniques in order to boost its stock and its value and its sustainability, A, by laying off people and downsizing, 2, by de-emphasizing the investment sector of the bank, and thirdly, by selling more stock. But who would be buying that stock if it's declining?
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, of course, what the management cannot do really in that situation, the management cannot do much else than try to basically cut costs. That's just the way it is. And of course, the other thing is raising equity. And now it seems they need more equity, and that of course will be the question: if there is enough appetite for the equity. Now, if there's not enough appetite for the equity, then one way or the other, you need state involvement. That's the only way it can work. The Deutsche Bank is in no other position than, let's say, the Italian banks. If the market is not willing anymore to put equity into the company, but it needs the equity, then you have to find ways, directly or more likely, more indirectly, to basically bring the state in, which wouldn't be new. Commerzbank also was bailed out by the German government, so it wouldn't be new. So, but how this is going to happen exactly, nobody knows. But because, as I said, it's politically this is all pretty sensitive. But I think what one can say is that Deutsche Bank has huge problems. And if they can, if they can actually solve them, nobody knows. And now we talk about an extremely strong stock market. We talk about a fairly good general economic environment. Now, if we have more problems in Europe, and we might well have more problems pretty soon, depending on what happens in Italy, then actually you will see even more problems with Deutsche Bank.
All right, Paul, I thank you so much for joining us. I've been speaking with Paul Steinhardt, and he is the Managing Director of Makroskop, the Institute for Study of Macroeconomics and its policies in Germany. I thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And thank you for joining us here on the Real News Network.